part. I don't even remember which part we are at right now. 4? 4 sounds about right. Let's go. Yeah, there's a lot of cutscene skips after the shooting minigame. There's 3 to be exact, and the 7-second rule still works. So here's a menu, and this menu preps for Leviathan, which is why I switched the parts here. So first we switch the battle speed back to full, so that well, the fights would be faster. Then the party should be Vaughn, Balthier, and Bosch. Vaughn and Bosch will be dealing a little bit of damage in the next fight, and Balthier is mostly there to serve as another target for the enemies to target, and to throw some healing items when the others are busy. Then licenses, Vaughn gets Black Magic 2, Time Magic 1, Time Magic 2, which is Reflect, which is important. Black Magic 2 was Arrow, and Arcane Magic 1, which is Dark, and Berserk. And then Vaughn gets the Flame Staff license. And then you want to give Vaughn the Flame Staff, which you can obviously skip if you didn't get any Flame Staves. Still maybe want to get the license though. Also, one reason to why you really want to get Flame Staff is because it makes this next fight a little bit better, or a lot better. It also makes this crit down nicer. So there's also more cutscene skips here, and the 7-second rule works again. After that, you get stuff. Vossler joins your party as a guest, and you get the map of Leviathan. So immediately at the start of Leviathan, we want to crit down Vossler, and how you do it in this first room. There's a weather effect that boosts fire damage. So So you want to do the crit down in the first room. There is an alternative way to do the crit down, which I believe is slightly faster, but it's a bit more awkward to do, and it's only like a second or two faster. So I still do this old crit down, which is to do a fire with Vaughn on Vossler. Like everything I say is gonna be on Vossler. It's fire with Vaughn, fire with Balthier, attack with Bosch, and then fire with Balthier. And then you want to switch your party leader to Vaughn or Bosch. Because Bosch has more HP and better armor than Vaughn. And then you want to flee, so that the flee starts after the fire, so that Bosch will put away his weapon while the fire animation is going, and then you can switch and then you can immediately use the door. If you don't flee, it's fine, but you have to wait for the animation after you touch the door. So it's a tiny time save. And the reason why we use Vossler is because Vossler has Gambit where he uses Balance when he's at critical HP. And Balance deals damage that is equal to the difference between the current and maximum HP of Vossler. So so yeah, that's a lot of damage, and it's AoE, so it hits all enemies. But it has a pretty high chance of missing, so it's not reliable. And also, in the next fight is gonna be 2 Chachis, 3 Imperial Swordsmen, and Imperial Mages. And the Swordsmen can, or the Chachis can use Tri Attack, which will one-shot Balfir because Balfir is so low on HP. Tri Attack also always deals 32% of party members' maximum HP or something like that. But anyway, here there's like a outside of the screen. There's like a web of light that Vossler was warning us about, and behind that there's a chest that can contain a Phoenix down if you need one. Just pointing at that. Just wanted to point that out. Now, because Vossler's balance will deal about 800 to 900 damage, depending on how low on HP he is, and that can be used here to one-shot these enemies for some free LP while you pick up these chests. These chests, the first one that I picked up could have been either Phoenix Down or Reflect Mode, both of which would have been nice. Also, but I did get 348 gil, which was also pretty nice. So that was some nice gil number. Also, the enemies hit me a little bit more than usual, probably here. Well, I got hit by the gunner, and then I got 2 lunges at the start of the room, but after that they pretty much left Bosch alone. You really don't want Vossler to get hit too much, although he has last stand, so he takes he takes very little damage when he's in critical HP. But he can still be damaged down without Tri Attack as well. And this Magus sometimes makes your game lag if he starts casting things earlier than he did in here, which is a little bit annoying. It slows a little bit of time. But yeah, this Judge's fight is another fight that's a major RNG fight. Mostly because balance and Tri attacks are random. That's all I have to say about it. Really. Or about all I have to say about the randomness. So the fight, you want to flee to this corner, or this, I don't know what to call this, bridge. But that's so that all the enemies gather up close by so that the balance AoE hits everyone. You pick up this one instead of the one on the opposite side, because this is where Bosch, this is closer to where Bosch starts the fight, so that's nice. And then I usually wait Bosch to attack once, and then I tell Bosch to target Judge B, whereas you should immediately start targeting Judge A with Vaughn. And A just because he is on top of the list, so it's easier to get to. Oh yeah, I guess I never mentioned that you can move in menus. In menus and when you sell stuff, if you hold triangle and press up, when you're in a shop selling stuff or buying stuff, if you hold triangle and press up, you go to max, and triangle and down goes to minimum, which is, well, 0 or 1 if you're selling, or I guess it's 1 in both cases now that I think of it. And in the battle menu, if you hold triangle and press up or down, it goes to like the bottom option or top option. And if you, or it actually goes one page down, but there's usually not enough for there to be any pages, so it just goes to the bottom and the top. And same goes for like shops and stuff. If you press, and I guess, and Gambit menus as well, I think. And some stuff it does that. Anyway. So yeah, Vossler is hitting them with balance, and you want to spread the damage between the two judges. Vaughn typically deals more damage than Bosch, so I tend to switch the target from which Vaughn is attacking and Bosch is attacking with a like. I usually do that once Balfier steals from the first judge, and there's the fight. Just waiting for the balances to hit, and if they don't hit, then kill them with Vaughn and Bosch. And Balfier will be stealing. You might steal some nice stuff like Phoenix Downs or some skill or something. Balfier also should... I guess I didn't mention, but Balfier... Usually you do it pretty early into the fight, but you want to throw a potion on Balfier, or Vossler rather. But yeah, that also, if Vossler gets killed, you want to revive him with the Phoenix Down from Balfier. If not Balfier, then Bosch. If not Bosch, then Vaughn. And you want Vaughn and Bosch at least to live that fight. If Balfier downs, you shouldn't bother trying to revive him. But you generally want to keep the... what's it called? You generally want to keep the HP high enough that Bosch and Vaughn won't die. But yeah, then we got Ash, who's also level 22 because of Dustia. And then you might have missed it here. So immediately after she joins, I tell Vaughn to cure. I usually tell Vaughn to cure Bosch here, because here Vaughn has more time to get the cure off than in the next room. But here Bosch's HP is good enough and Vaughn is poisoned. So I'm like Bosch is fine if he has 400 or more HP. Like, he's more than fine in that case. So this is pretty good HP for Bosch to have. And Vaughn will start charging the cure. Usually it's on Bosch, but now it's on Vaughn because of the reasons I mentioned. And then you go, if you haven't sold your Dustia stuff yet, then sell them here before this menu. Otherwise, you go straight to buy and buy one cherry staff, only one. That's important. You buy a top cappy hat and killing beef shirt, assuming you weren't able to keep them from earlier. You buy dark, which is at the bottom. Then you go beige up and 2 up for immobilize. You go 3 down for reflect and 2 down for protect. And then items. I would stock up to at least 2 Phoenix Downs. You can go more if you're new and want to be safe. You can go for more Phoenix Downs, but they just know that they are 250 each. So whatever, it's gonna be away from other things. Well, it typically isn't, but if you're very close on Gil, you might get into trouble if you are not careful. But usually it's fine to buy a little bit more Phoenix Downs, but just don't buy like 20 or even 10. But buying a couple more might be fine. It depends on how close you are in Gil. Then 3 gold needles. Like, you can buy more Echo Orbs and gold needles if you want to. 2 and 3 is what I buy. Those are numbers that I typically find convenient or enough, adequate. I don't know the word. Anyway, let's see if I did use cure on Vaughn. Yeah, I used another cure on Vaughn, but here it's much tighter. So in that room, Vaughn can't get a cure off on Bosch, but he can get a cure off on himself sometimes if you're fast enough. And then you want your cursor to be on Arcane Magic. You want everyone's gambits to be off, although it's not a big deal if, say, Balfier's gambits are on and he's dead. Doesn't really matter if Balfier's gambits are on or off. There you can go for those chests again if you want to, and you can use Phosphorus Balance to kill more guards if you want to, assuming he's alive and on critical HP. He sometimes ends up the fight dead, but it's fine. You want Vaughn and Bosch to be alive because they get LP, and that LP gets transferred into Ash and Penelo as well. But yeah, here you want the cursor on Arcane Magic, as I mentioned earlier. But this is the latest you want to do it. And that's so that you can you first do the menu. You want Vaughn, Ash, and Penelo as your party. And then licenses, starting with Vaughn, but switching immediately to Penelo because Vaughn was at the Flame Staff, and you want Cherry Staves for both Penelo and Ash to be licensed. Ash also needs to get small swords that's on the way. So here you can see Ash's LP. There's two ways to do this menu. There's what I call typical way and the other way. They are pretty much equal in weakness, but I like to do the usual way. But here, Ash has only 174 LP, and she needs 175 LP. Remember that Gigantode I didn't kill? Anyway. It's fine, I just have to do it the other way. And I like the usual way because that way Ash doesn't get arrow licensed, so I will know for sure that I have all the licenses. But here Ash will not have the Spellbreaker licensed, and later on in a specific other menu I might forget to license the Spellbreaker because Spellbreaker is easier to forget to license than Arrow because you will notice when you're trying to set up your gambits to Arrow that you haven't licensed Arrow yet. That's why I like to do it the other way, but now I have to do it the way where you get Spellbreaker. So then you switch to Bosch and you get Pulse 1 for Bosch. That contains the Cypress Pole that we will be using against Tiamat later. You also get license for Balfier. Then Vaughn gets, Penelo gets Light Armor 2, Mystic Armor 1, but only because they are on the way to Mystic Armor 2, which is the top Cappy Hat and Killing Weave shirt that I bought. And then Penelo gets Black Magic 1, Black Magic 2, and Ash gets Accessories 4 and Black Magic 2. Now these licenses Ash wouldn't get the usual way I do it, but now because of the lack of LP I had to do that. And also, if you're curious, Ash's starting LP needs to be 195, but it's 100 to do that menu correctly, but it's 175 after getting the cherry stuff. And Penelo gets Time Magic 1, Time Magic 2 for Reflect, Time Magic 1 was Immobilize, Arcane Magic 1 for Dark and Berserk. And then Ash gets White Magic 3 and Gambit Slot because they are on the way to the Magic Lore, but meanwhile Penelo gets Gambit Slot, Potion Lore 1. You can also go take these licenses instead of these licenses. But this license, I believe, is the HP plus 50, and you don't want to get that for Penelo because it makes critting down more awkward. So that's why this way. Also, I will mention another thing soon that I forgot to talk about. But here's the magic lore. Then you get that for Ashe as well. And normally I would get Spellbreaker for Ashe here, but I can't afford it. And I get Spellbreaker for Penelo. And then I would finish it off by taking the accessories for here for Ashe, which is conveniently like straight in the diagonal line, so you can just hold up and right to get there. But there's this one license I forgot to talk about over here. This license and this license are the same same LP, but there is a reason to pick up this instead of this, even though we never use any of the licenses in this one for Penelo. And that's because this license is Shields 1, and it has a shield called Escutcheon. And I will show that. And it's important right here in this menu, actually. Because after you're done with all the licenses, you want to optimize. And you want to optimize Ashe first. So Ashe gets the Cherry Staff, which is important. And also, look what gets removed when you optimize or replaced with the Cherry Staff. It's the Escutcheon. And if you picked up that license when you optimize Penelo here, you would get the Escutcheon on Penelo, which is something you don't want to get, because you really don't want Penelo to be blocking when she shouldn't. And that's also the reason why Ashe has Cherry Staff and Penelo does not, and why we didn't buy a second Cherry Staff for Penelo. And that's so that Penelo would not block in the next fight, because it's very important that she doesn't. I will tell you why in a second. Penelo's gambits are on here because I'm doing the no gambit setup. If you want to use gambits, you can give Penelo and Vaughn reflect and dark gambits. It would probably be ally any reflect and sell ally Penelo or ally Vaughn reflect or dark. And you would just do the same fight as I do, but instead of using dark, dark manually, I would do instead I would do dark with the gambits. But yeah, if you don't do those gambits, then this gambit should be on, and it should be off if you do the gambit setup. Because otherwise Penelo would start casting reflect on people, and you don't want her to do that. Anyway, you want to have Penelo cast dark on herself, and meanwhile you run away that you are both Vaughn and Ashe are out of range of dark because dark is AoE. The reason is the Spellbreaker license that we got. Spellbreaker, what it does, it doubles your magic power or it doubles your magic damage when you are in critical HP. So it's basically double damage when you are in critical health. And we want to get Penelo to critical health for the next fight, so we can take advantage to that. Also, here's the chest I was talking about earlier, that could contain a Phoenix Down. Again, if you want to, you can go for it for the Phoenix Down. And then you want to flee as soon as Penelo's Shark gets in action, so try to time that. And then you can stop fleeing as soon as the action. You can see here it says dark action. As soon as this goes away, you can stop fleeing and do stuff. So right here. So you want to reflect Vaughn with Vaughn, and then you want to reflect Ashe with Vaughn. And as soon as Penelo gets in rage that you can control her, then you want to tell her to reflect herself as well. And that's the setup for Geese fight. Well, part of it. Some of the setup will be actually done during the fight, which makes this fight interesting. Or difficult to execute would be maybe better word. Especially when you're not using gambits. Anyway, starting the fight, you run forward with Vaughn. Controlling Vaughn, and Ash and Penelo should follow. But you immediately want to have Penelo cast Dark on the Swordsman B. So it's when you cast Dark. So you you should set your cursor on Dark before entering the fight, or Arcane Magics, since you don't have any other Arcane Magics. You select Dark, then you press L1 to or sorry, no, you don't press L1. You just press down twice to reach the Imperial Swordsman B, and then then you could yeah, you used Dark with Penelo, and then you used Dark with Vaughn, and now that Penelo has already targeted Swordsman B, then Vaughn also will target Swordsman B just by mashing X. And after the Dark is in action, you can see here Penelo's Dark is now in action, and you can tell Penelo to cast Dark on herself. And you tell Vaughn to cast Dark on herself as well as soon as possible. Thanks, Lissball. So you can see that Ash got hit by Tri Attack. And Swordsman can use Tri Attack. And that's actually the fight that makes the move that makes this fight interesting. Tri Attack on either Ash or Penelo is bad. Ash because it can inflict slow on Ash, and that's annoying. And on Penelo, actually you want to get Penelo to Tri Attacked. That's why Penelo is not in critical HP yet, as you can see. But the goal is to like have her high enough HP that he can she can survive. She can survive one Tri Attack. And then Ash is supposed to hit Penelo once, which is why we don't want Penelo to be able to block. Because we really don't want Penelo to be blocking that attack. But now the problem is that Ash is slowed. So when I tell Ash to attack Penelo, you can see how slowly her ATB is charging. And Penelo will get the Dark off. Like that first Dark didn't get the Spellbreaker boost because Ash was too slow to hit Penelo. And now, because of that, Geese is just not enough dead. Like, the fight ends when Geese enters 20% of HP, which is maybe about here. So it was really close not killing him. So I had to do one extra Dark to finish him off. And you can see that Geese is starting to cast Arrow. If he hits that arrow on me and dies to that arrow, it will count as him killing himself. And if that happens, you will not get LP from this fight, which is of course not something you really don't want, because Geese is I think 22 LP, if I recall correctly. It's basically a run over. Depends. There are ways to recover, but you just have to figure out a way to you just have to find a way to figure out how to get LP. One way would be killing all rounds, but I'm not explaining all round farming here. If you want that, then if you want me to explain that, then you have to ask me another time. I will not explain that in the video because it's not done in the run, so it would be hard to just explain. Yeah, I probably would say that that could be true. Anyway, or then we start heading towards Sensi, and Sensi starts with the unskippable cutscene. This is the first one where you really can consider using a bathroom break because the other ones are kind of too early. And this is fairly long, but it's not long enough for me. But if you're fast enough to use the bathroom here, then you can do that. But I'm not, so I don't use the bathroom break here. This is the PS2 version. So yeah, here you just run past all the all-rounds, and as I mentioned, you can kill them, but you have to have Penelo in Spellbreaker using Dark on them. You can kill them for LP if you want to for backup, but yeah, I'm not going too much into detail for that. I did, however, turn on Gambits for Ashe, and have my cursor on Cure, so that I can cure freely. Ashe's Gambits are HP less than 70% cure, so that's gonna be useful. It is useful for the Cure Gambit is useful for keeping your HP up during this long run, because it's quite a long run and a lot of enemies will be hitting you. As you can see, Penelo is already pretty low on HP, but we are running with Penelo because she has the best armor out of all my characters at this point, so she is the most durable of my characters, which is, and even so, she's still going down pretty fast. And I'm sorry I can't really answer all the questions because I'm doing the video, but you can still keep the questions coming, and I'll answer the relevant questions, and you can still ask the irrelevant questions. I don't mind, but I just cannot answer every time because I'm trying to explain a lot of stuff, and otherwise I would just run out of time if I answered every question. I usually do, and I usually appreciate questions, and I still do appreciate questions. I just can't answer all of them, unfortunately. Time is limited. But yeah, here you get free. You get free from you're free from enemies, so the enemies are not targeting you. So that's a very good place for you to heal Penelo to full HP. Otherwise, you can use Ash's Gambits at the starts of screens and in general in places where there are no enemies. And yeah, just running past all the enemies. There's not really much to say, except actually there. Let's go back a little bit. Over here, like you could see it briefly in the corner. You can see like edge of that chest. That chest can contain a reflect mode if you really want to, but I don't think it's worth it. I just want to point that out. Oh yeah, and this, if I didn't mention it before, reflecting magic is kind of useful. You could see it in the Geese fight. I cast Dark on myself, and I had 3 party members with reflect status, and it reflected from each and every one of them. So I got 3 copies of the magic for 1 cast. So that's why the reflect threats are really, really good. And here you can also just heal Penelo to full. Like, whenever you're healing, your aim is to heal Penelo as much as possible. And after that, like, Ash would, or I guess Vaughn would be the priority number 2, and Ash is priority number 3 in terms of healing. Vossler never needs healing, he is tank enough. And these Urutans can also cast sleep on you, and that can be pretty annoying. If they hit you instantly, then after the sleep, then you can just stop for a second or 2. But if they stop targeting you, then you have to switch your character to another person and then keep running, and that's a little bit annoying. And yeah, those guys. Here, from this point onwards, you start looking for a place where you can set up. You can start setting up for the next fight. You want to cast Reflect on Vaughn, or you want to have Vaughn cast Reflect on himself, more precisely. As soon as you get untargeted by enemies here, assuming there are no enemies very close by. Like, here, I got untargeted, so I'm having Vaughn to reflect himself. If there are just no place where you can do it, it's fine. You can just do the setup at the start of the... or after these enemies stop targeting you. But that loses a little bit of time. If possible, you want to use reflect earlier, so that once reflect wears off in time. Then you want to get rid of the Cure Gambit, so turn off Vaughn's Gambit, or Ash's Gambit. And then you have Vaughn to reflect Vossler right before the right before the screen. And my cue for this is when the minimap over here, when you can see the edge on the minimap, that's when I cast the reflect. That's when I start casting reflect. You can do it earlier if you want to, but you can't do it much later, as you can see. But you can't do it too early. But yeah, the game forces you to the save screen there, but if you want to save, go ahead, but at my level, I can't really afford the time loss of saving. But yeah, here you want to set up, you want to use dark. Let me do that again. The goal is to have both Ash and Penelo get hit by the dark, and Vaughn should hit Penelo once with just the regular attack, so that Penelo will get in critical. And you want to cast dark on Ash first, because otherwise Vaughn might hit Penelo to critical before it hits Ash, and then Spellbreaker would get into effect, and then Penelo would kill Ash. So Vaughn hits Penelo into critical here. Ash is and Ash is almost at critical. That's the ideal setup. And you have to wait a little bit for Ash. Let me show you. Like you have to, like you can see, I stopped there for a second before I casted the dark. So just so that Ash can catch up to close enough. And then you want to have Penelo cast Reflect on himself or herself, and Vaughn casts Reflect on Ash, and then you enter the fight. And this fight, Garuda will always start with Enrage. So that means that even though and he will always target the nearest person. So that means that even though Penelo is the goal is to have Vossler be the nearest person. And as you can see, Vossler is right here. So if I run this way, Vossler will be the closest person to Garuda when Garuda actually decides to attack. So that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna run here, tell Penelo to cast Dark on herself, and same thing with Vaughn. And again, I'm reflected, so each hit will hit 4 times. And Penelo's darks are even doubled, so Penelo's dark will basically deal 8 times more damage. Plus that Garuda is weak to dark, so it's another ×2. So basically it's Penelo's darks are dealing 16 times damage for one cast, what one cast would normally be, which is pretty insane. And then you tell Ash to use attack on herself. And as you can see, Ash just got the attack off before Garuda died, and that's very tight. So if you can't get it, it's not a big deal. You can just hit Ash after the fight, and that's completely fine. But you can see here what happens when it's optimal. And that was actually a gold split in my PB. That was very good. So then also you want to set your cursor on potion, and that's because you are gonna do I'm gonna do a potion warp here. Telling Vaughn to cast potion on himself, so he stays put while I go and do this shop. And in the shop you buy a cherry staff, and you buy 2 cypress bowls. So you got the second. Finally, you get the second cherry staff for Penelo, which I didn't buy earlier to make the optimized menu better. But Penelo doesn't really need the cherry staff until now. Cherry staff, they boost arrow damage, so that's why they are really important. But we haven't been using arrow yet, because we only buy it in this shop. And speaking of spells, there's Sleep, Oil, Berserk, and Arrow you want to buy. And then immediately do a menu here. So Penelo and you remove Penelo and Ash from the party. That's the whole menu. But you might be tempted to switch your party leader to Vaughn before doing the menu, but that's actually a waste of time because you can just do the menu and your party leader will be Vaughn instantly. And then you want your cursor to be on Reflect for the next fight. Then here's Demon Wall 1. So Demon Wall 1 is an optional fight. And we fight him anyway for money and LP. So what killing him does, you get 30 LP, which is a lot at this point. And if you go to the clan hall, you get 5,000 money. Or 5,000 gil. So it's very good thing to kill. Like, even though it wastes maybe half a minute, it's still very nice. But yeah, how you do this, you immediately, well, almost immediately open the menu. I actually opened up the menu too early, and as you can see, Vaughn is not targeted. That means I have to leave the menu and reopen the menu so that Vaughn is targeted. You can also see that sometimes Vossler is targeted as well. That's fine. That means that Demon Wall is using Blind Ga. But if only Vossler is targeted, that means he's gonna use Annul. And in that case, you can't kill Demon Wall, at least not immediately. If that happens, don't do this menu. You have to flee. Flee away. And come back so that he targets Vaughn. And then bring out everyone and do the menu. But I'm actually not sure if Vossler's Reflect will last long enough, because that's never happened to me yet with this setup. So I'm not sure if that's a safe thing to do, but that's something that should be investigated eventually when it happens. Same thing is if Vaughn gets hit by Doom. That's like the same thing. You have to run away so that but in that case, at least I think it's better to just forget about Demon Wall 1 and just go and kill Demon Wall 2 without killing him. But you need to get Spellbreaker for Ash here. That's very important. If you got Spellbreaker in the earlier menu, like I usually do, you would get Arrow instead in this menu. But in this menu, it's easier to forget to get Spellbreaker than Arrow. So now here, Gambits. You want to press Select to remove Vaughn's Gambit, and then make him a new Gambit, Ally Vaughn Arrow, and you leave Vaughn's Gambits off. And the reason why Penelo's Gambits were on is that so you don't have to turn them on here. So you save an input, or actually 2 inputs. But yeah, these are the Ally Penelo Reflect and Ally Penelo Arrow is what you want. And here you don't delete a Gambit with Select, but you just turn this Gambit into Ally Ash Arrow. And here you turn on Ash's Gambits. And then you run away. You run away so that Demon Wall can't reach you. He's still targeting Vaughn, but he can't reach Vaughn if you're far enough away. And he's constantly moving towards you, so you have to keep the distance. So you have to move whole time you have to move a little bit further. And then you also need to reflect Vaughn. And then Ash and Penelope's reflect arrows should finish Demon Wall off in 3 rounds. But sometimes it happens that Ash and Penelope will like go right into that corner, and Vossler will drift right into this corner, and then they are too far away from each other, and that is very bad. So I don't know what to do if that happens, other than just hope that you get enough damage in that he dies. But that is something that very well can happen. Like, you might just have to wait for Vossler to finish him off, or have Ash cast an additional arrow or something. But then again, that's more MP, so I don't know. Probably Ash casting another arrow is the best way to do it. Anyway, after the fight, you just flee and leave immediately, and then the other Demon Wall. Here, you want to flee, and here's a little bit of a trick, although that was an accident, mistake. You want to reflect Vossler, and as soon as that reflect goes into action, turn on Ash and Penelope's gambits. You should have your cursor already on the gambit if you're doing this on active. But then turn on Ash and Penelope's gambits, and immediately close the battle menu and start fleeing, so that you flee before your fleeing is complete, before reflect this reflect action goes away. If you do it correctly, like here, Vaughn will not take the battle stance, and you can just run here, and Ash and Penelope's gambits will finish this fight off. And you could see that Vaughn got hit there. That's what's supposed to happen, but I wasn't paying attention this time if Vaughn got comboed or not. If Vaughn gets comboed, he might get too low on HP, which is annoying. And it's about like, you can throw an extra potion on Vaughn or something. But an important thing is that as soon as Penelope's reflect wears off, you tell Penelope to cast reflect on herself, and then you can tell Vaughn to cast reflect on Ash. It's very important that you do it in this room so that Penelope can get enough MP, because the characters recover more MP the less the MP they have proportionally, and you need to get enough MP back before Belias so you can get enough arrows in. So it's important that you do the reflect in the first room there. And then you run, like, usually after Penelope gets an MP around here, that's when I do this menu. So Penelope just got the 10th MP here, and then I open the menu and bring out everyone to preserve their reflects, and then bring out Bosch. So even though Ash and Penelope the reflect was already cast on them, their reflects will not, the reflect time won't tick while they're out of the party. So that's really nice. It helps us to preserve the buffs they have, which is reflect in this case, and they will have enough time on their reflex to do multiple bosses without having to waste time. Yeah, then you just run with Bosch, because you won't be using Bosch in this dungeon at all. So, and Bosch has enough HP and armor to survive everything that I have maybe seen Bosch die once in all the runs I've done here. But if you want to, you can turn battle speed on slowest, but it really doesn't make a difference. Like 99% of the time it won't make a difference. Like you can see, Bosch hasn't even taken a single point of damage, even though I'm on fastest battle speed. Either way, you touch this jewel. And it's important Bosch's gambits are off, because otherwise Bosch will start trying to attack one of those skeletons. And if he blocks, he might actually attack them before you get to the waystone and waste some time. And also for a reason I'll explain very shortly. Well, I guess I could explain it now. If Bosch has the gambits on, and his gambits are like foe nearest visible attack, he will always take the weapon out when he sees an enemy when you stop fleeing. And that will cost some time. For example, let's say you were able to see that enemy. If you were able to see that enemy that was running behind you over there, Bosch would have taken out his weapon before touching the door and tried to start attacking before touching the door. That's wasting time. But yeah, here you go these paths. I have a memory, like you go left path first, and I have like, this game just seems to be always left first, which is one of my ways of remembering. And also, after you open the doors, when you took the left turn, you go left, and when you took the right path, you go right. That's how I remember where to go after opening the door when you have to choose. And here is another example. If you had gambits on, you would definitely take your weapon out here. Now there's a chance that you get away without taking your weapon out. But I wasn't lucky enough. It sometimes happens. But here, you can see that Bosch got untargeted. So, if Bosch is untargeted here, what you can do is you can do the menu before this door, which is pretty nice. Because in this game, if you open a menu right after entering another zone, it will take a little bit longer for the menu to load. And if you do it, so you prefer to doing menus like at the ends of the zone. At the ends of the zone when you don't have to wait for it. I will have an example of it in probably the next part. But yeah, that's just the reason why you would do the menu here instead of at the when the enemies are fully away. So yeah, the menu is, and the order here is important actually. You first take out Penelope and Ash, then remove Bosch, and then insert Vaughn. And that way Ash will become the party leader. If you insert Vaughn before removing Bosch, then Vaughn will become the party leader, and that's not what you want. But here I ended up messing up, and I had to take out my weapons. So that was annoying. That's the drawback of doing the menu there, that it's a little bit more annoying to open the door. But usually it works just fine, at least for me. But yeah, here this zone, we do the final preps for Belias fight. So Vaughn needs to so Ash and Penelope already got reflected. So Vaughn needs to be reflected, Vossler needs to be reflected, and Vaughn also needs to be cured, because Vaughn will be tanking, and if Vaughn has, like, this is not enough HP for Vaughn to survive the fight in most cases. But you want to do the reflect on Vossler around here, Like, I do it whenever I start going down the stairs. That's when I use the reflect. And that's my timing for it. Then I set my cursor on the white magics to do it. And that's so I can pick up this elixir and then warp straight back to Vaughn. And that's why you wanted Ash as your party leader initially. It doesn't matter if it's Ash or Penelo, actually. Either one as a party leader would work. And then you want to have Ash to cast a cure on Vaughn. And then turn on Ash's Gambits. And not turn on Vaughn's Gambits, but use a Reflect with Vaughn on himself. And then have a Penelo turn on Penelo's Gambits after the Reflect is in action. And that way, preferably, you can do this whole screen without taking out your weapons, but I messed up with turning Vaughn's Gambits on, so that didn't happen. Anyway, then you enter Belias fight. You go here, and this is important. Vaughn's Gambits have to be off when you start this, when you enter. And it's important because Belias, because of how the aggro mechanics in this game work, and each time you cast a spell, it gives you more aggro and takes away aggro from your other party members. So how it goes is Ash and Penelo will cast their spells, and you will have Vaughn to be the last person to cast. That way, when they are all done, Vaughn will be the one with most aggro, and Belias will target Vaughn instead of one of the girls. So, as you can see, Ash and Penelo start arrows, and then immediately you turn on Vaughn's Gambits. So you can see that Vaughn's arrow is a little bit behind of Ash and Penelo's. It doesn't have to be much, as long as Vaughn is the last person to get the arrow off, that's good enough. Then if you are low on a MP, you can run around in circles in this fight with either Vaughn or Penelo if Penelo is low on MP for whatever reason. They all need 48 MP to fully do the fight, or to do 3 arrows. But if Vaughn actually doesn't even need the 3rd arrow, but you might as well. Unless you are worried about your steps for Tiamat, which is something I will talk about in next part. Okay, so here you do 2 rounds of arrows, and Belias will start using Greater Barrier. And once the Greater Barrier is finished, Belias will use Firaja, and you will not want Firaja to happen. So you will cut the 2nd round of arrows short. Or, not short, but as soon as they are done casting, and before Belias can get the Firaja off. Like, you have to do this early enough. It doesn't matter if you don't get all arrows in. So you can you can do this a little bit early if you really want to. But you have enough time to get all arrows in if you're really fast with the opening the menu. But then what you do is you go to the equipments, and this is the ATB reset. This is a big ATB reset on Belias. And in case I haven't really talked about ATB resets, so this is a good time to do it. So ATB reset is switching any equipment of a character that's currently doing it, in the middle of doing an action. So Vaughn, Ash, and Penelo are all in the middle of an action, and what it does is it cancels the remaining of the action, and you can immediately start casting a new thing. It's gonna be very important later as well, but here's the first really big usage of it, if you don't count the one mistake I made in what's it called? Barheim. But yeah, here I guess on Mimic Queen as well, and Dustia, but they're like minor. Here it's very important that you do it, because otherwise you will not have enough time to get the 3rd round of arrows in before Firaja. So what you do is you remove everything from Vaughn, Penelo, and Ash, and you also set up your equipment for the next fight or not the next fight, but the fight after that, which is very cool. I really like this ADB reset. So you optimize Bosch. You don't do anything for Fran, but you optimize Balthier, then you optimize Vaughn, Ash, and Penelo again. So you go like, you keep pressing L1, first you remove all from the first 3, and then you optimize the next everyone. Then you optimize everyone except for Fran. And it has to be in that order. Because you need to optimize Balthier before Ash, so that Ash gets the light woven shirt on. Because otherwise, because now the way we do it now is that Ash had the bronze armor and bronze helm, but now because Balthier is optimized before Ash is, Balthier got the bronze armor and bronze helm, so now Ash had only the light woven shirt to wear, and the light woven shirt is very important for the next fight. And also, Balthier wants the bronze armor and bronze helm on for Tiamat. And yeah, the light woven shirt gives Ash a little bit extra damage that she needs to beat the damage roll. So here, you can see I actually got really lucky that all these arrows, actually Vaughn's arrow didn't even beat Belias's Fire Raja, but that was literally as close as you can get with doing the ADB reset. And like you can see how tight that was. I almost failed this fight, but it turned out to be good in the end because Ash and Penelo got their arrows off in time. And then you finish the fight by turning off everyone's gambits. Although I failed to turn off Vaughn's. So yeah, that was a little bit sketchy, but it worked. And there's a couple of cutscene skips. And then here, usually what I would do is Vaughn's gambits would be off, so he wouldn't be doing this. But what I would usually do is I would tell Penelo to cast, Ash to cast Cure, and flee before the Cure actually hits. That way Ash will just stay still a little bit further, and you can party leader warp to him or her after getting the chest here. So you can see it here, like pretty much what I did there, but just I would have just done it immediately. So I would set my cursor on white magics after turning everyone's gambits off, off. And that's how I would do it. And that chest that I picked up, it's a 50-50 chance of being Elixir or White Fang. The Elixir would be really good, but I got unlucky and got the White Fang. And then you party leader swap to Ash. So Ash is your party leader for the next fight. And here I typically set my cursor, like my arcane magic cursor, I set on Berserk, so that it's ready for whenever I need to start berserking people. You don't need to do it yet, but it's something I do here. Just as a preparation for the future. And yeah, arrow. Then I need my magic cursors to be eventually on black magic though, because Ash needs to be casting arrow immediately at the start of the fight, and not on yourself but on the enemies. So it's a magic cast. And you also want Penelo's gambits to be on for the fight, so that's why I'm turning them on here. And then the cursor needs to be on arrow as well for the fight. So the fight is Vossler and 3 Imperial Swordsmen. what you do is you cast arrow on the middle swordsman. By the way, there's also cutscene skips and 7-second rule working. So yeah, so the start, you immediately cast arrow with Ash, then you cast reflect with Vaughn, then you cast reflect on Ash with Penelo, and then you turn on everyone's gambits. So, oh yeah, and you need to target the soldier C. So that's I think it's 3 down, or no, it's 2 down. A is the default target. So you use arrow and then press down twice to get to the swordsman C. And then, as I said, immediately reflect Vaughn and have Penelo reflect Ash. So the arrow here is a damage roll to kill all of these guards. So that's what you need the light woven shirt on for. And if any of them survives with the damage roll, you can tell Vaughn to attack that guard. Sometimes they can also block magics, and if they do, just have one arrow reflect on them or something, but the problem here is that Vossler can actually kill Ash, so you would very much like him to change targets, and with this setup he actually usually does. He usually switches his target to Vaughn, which is nice. I don't remember if he did it in my PB or not. Also, you can grab the items that the swordsman picked, like that was a potion, whatever. But yeah, because of how it works, Vaughn gets the arrow first, and I think once Vossler chooses the next action, Vossler can target Vaughn, and hopefully does. He didn't in this case, it seems, but it's whatever. But yeah, two rounds of arrows is enough to finish it off. And then you want your cursor to be on arcane magics at the end of this fight, and you want gambits to be off. You can actually leave Ash's gambits on if you really want to, but I just turn off everything. And yeah, the danger in that fight is that the guards can use try attack, and Vossler can use attack, and Vossler's attack combos, or Vossler can combo Ash to death, which is what you really don't want to do. Vossler is also 30 LP, so it's really important that you get the LP for all the characters. Well, one doesn't matter that much, but Ash and Penelo, it's very important that Ash and Penelo get the 30 LP from that fight. Anyway, that concludes Tomb of Raithwall and this part. So, I'll see you in the next part, which will be... Oh, one thing I should mention. After a Vossler fight, you can't hear it now, but there's an audio cue for this. There's audio cue that's like some calm music plays. I can't remember what, like where it would play in the story, but other than that cutscene. But there's that. After that, when you cutscene skip after you hear that music, that's when you can go to the bathroom, and this is like the first legit bathroom break for me in the run. It's about minute 20 seconds, or minute 15 seconds or something. So this is a very good place to use a bathroom in a run and get back before this cutscene is done. But yeah, I will see you after the cutscene next. I will start after the cutscene next time. Or in the next part.